Is the United States now gearing up to bomb Iran? US President Donald Trump assured patriots in Iran, as he put it, that help was on its way. He's warned the regime there will be consequences. Iran has hit back saying the United States is trying to destabilize Iran. There are reports saying that Iran has also warned countries hosting US bases they could once again be in the line of fire should the US attack. And Qatar, that was bombed last time, is already calling for de-escalation and dialogue for stability. Russia too has warned against any regime change. The images that you see, that graphic that you see on your television screen, it's the US bases in West Asia, and Iran is indicating US troops and US assets at all these bases would be fair game if the US were to bomb Iran.
Iran is burning. Streets are on fire. Protests escalating across Iran against the Ayatollah Khamenei regime. The Iranian government admits 2,000 people have been killed since violent protests began last week. Human rights bodies claim the toll is much higher. The crackdown is intensifying. An execution order has been issued amid demonstrations. 26-year-old protester Irfan Soltani is sentenced to death after being arrested on January 8th. No trial was held. Soltani was not allowed any legal representation. This is the first execution order linked to the latest wave of protests.
Over 12,000 innocent lives were killed by the regime. I have some unconfirmed report and estimate that the number is around 24,000 people. This is a massacre. This is a genocide.
US President Donald Trump has openly supported the protesters, assuring them help.
To all Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions if possible, and save the name of the killers and the abusers that are abusing you. I say, make Iran great again. You know, it was a great country until these monsters came in and took it over.
Trump has issued a stern warning to Khamenei's regime and demanded the release of all political prisoners. The US State Department warns against global silence, says the execution could set a dangerous precedent. Reports now claim that White House envoy Steve Witkoff secretly met exiled Iranian Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi over the weekend. Pahlavi, on his part, has appealed to Iran military to revolt.
شما ارتش ملی ایران هستید، نه ارتش جمهوری اسلامی. وظیفه دارید از جان همیهنانتون حفاظت بکنید. فرصت زیادی براتون نمونده. به مردم هرچی زودتر بپیوندید.
Iran Revolutionary Guard has said they are at the highest level of readiness and are ready for any attack, adding that Iran's missile stipules has increased since June. Meanwhile, Russia has slammed US actions, warning against American interference in Iran's internal political matters. With Trump backing the protests and Putin backing Tehran, Iran risks becoming a US-Russia flashpoint. For now, as Iran burns, the world is watching. With Pranay Upadhyay and Geeta Bhatt, Bureau Report, India Today.
So the world is watching what's happening in Iran, and there are analysts who argue that it was easier for President Donald Trump to abduct the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, describing him as a dictator. He did rule, but not through ideology. Iran, under Ayatollah Ali Khamenei now and Ayatollah Khomeini earlier, is a theocracy different from a dictatorship where an ideology, a religious ideology, governs. Now, this religious leadership that's been in power since the 1979 revolution in Iran, the supreme leader, the Ayatollah, The Ayatollah holds ultimate political and religious authority. Theocratic states like Iran derive legitimacy from religion. Iran, for example, is a Shia Muslim country. It's invoked religion-based laws to suppress any kind of dissent in the past. In a dictatorship, the authority may or may not seek or command religious backing to remain in power. There's a strong leader, there's a clique around him, but religion plays a role in a theocracy. In Iran, there were attempts made in the past, and several attempts were made in the past. For example, 1981-82, 2009, 2017-18 protests, 2020 protests, 2022 protests, including that Mahsa Amini protest for a regime change. But invoking religion, a large number of people took to the streets in support of the regime, against people who wanted a change of regime. Is 2026 any different? Remember, in Venezuela, an autocratic state, the power was locked with Nicolas Maduro. His rule was driven by force and fear. But in Iran, which is a theocracy, Ayatollah Khamenei's rule is justified in the name of religion. Faith and politics are completely fused, quite different from a dictatorship. In Iran, religious doctrine has become the state law, and dissent is branded as going against religion. Let me now throw it open for a wider conversation on how easy or how difficult would Iran be for President Trump. Joining me on this special broadcast, Roxana Cheghini is the Iranian cultural analyst and advocate for democratic transition, joins us on this broadcast. Welcome. Azita Shafazand is an Iranian analyst. Ambassador Anil Trigunayat is former ambassador to Jordan, Libya and Malta. Richard Painter is a professor at the University of Minnesota. Also with me for a wider analysis on the region and what's happening there is Dr. Wael Awad, a very senior political analyst and international affairs correspondent. Azita Shafazand, if I may, reports indicate protesters could now be executed. Iran is hitting back at the United States, saying this is political interference by the US. Does the regime remain extremely strong when the exiled prince of Iran asks the army to revolt and join the protesters? How likely is that to happen?
Good morning to everyone. I'm in Washington, D.C. You asked me many questions. First one I wanted to address it, actually you should show the footage of the Monday demonstration all over the country for the Iran. So there is many millions of the people came to the street to support the Iranian government and security of the Iran and for the Iran, for the border of Iran, to keep the border. As a matter of fact, I was listening to your news. You have separatists in your country, India, which is, we have many separatists in Iran, which is they got involved in the past week, which is supported by Israeli and American. We have a Kurdish separatists, which is terrorist group, which is Komele, Pejak. They get very involved. And as far as, I don't want to go more to detail, I can go more to detail, but as far as the Reza Pahlavi, in many, if you look at it and search, in many occasions, he said he doesn't want to go to Iran. He doesn't want to go. He's lived in America for 40 years. He has his friend, his family here. Before he was talking about the telecommunication, video communication to support the Iranian, and even after so-called, they are talking about regime change, government change. So he can just give the idea which from the telecommunication. And
no, that's a very interesting point you make. You're saying the regime is well and truly in control. Give me a moment. Let me bring in Roxana, also joining me, fellow Iranian, again, currently in exile. Roxana Cheghini, more than 2,000 Iranians are reported to have been killed. There are apprehensions that execution of protesters may start soon. What are you picking up about the current situation on ground?
I hear that the situation is getting bigger and out of control. Is not the first time that they are killing thousands of people. Is they are killing people for 47 years. But now people didn't stop. People are not afraid anymore. People are not leaving the street, and they are not going to stop until they get to the next level. Yes, the situation I hear from Iran, more than 30 cities, there are bigger demonstration. People found a way to get connected together.
Professor Painter, when President Trump writes, help is on its way, help in your appreciation in the form of more sanctions, or is the US preparing to bomb Iran? But given what's happening all around in West Asia, how easy or difficult would it be for America to bomb Iran now?
I have no idea what President Trump is thinking of doing in Iran. Iran is a horrible dictatorship, that's for sure. But the question is whether American intervention is going to help the situation or rather make it worse. Iran had an elected democracy in 1953, and CIA agent Kermit Roosevelt Jr., the grandson of the President Teddy Roosevelt, concocted a plan to overthrow a democratically elected government in 1953 in Iran to install the Shah of Iran, who was a dictator himself, a very horrific regime there that was then replaced in 1979 by the Islamic Republic, which has also been a horrific regime oppressing its own people and supporting terrorism around the world. But the point is, the reason why Iran is not a democracy today is in part due to Kermit Roosevelt's scheme back in 1953 that he sold to the incoming Eisenhower administration. Over and over again, we've learned that United States intervention in other countries, regime change plans concocted by armchair theorists in Washington, D.C., don't work and backfire. We've tried it in Latin America many times, going back to Teddy Roosevelt's administration, and most recently with the intervention in Venezuela by President Trump. This doesn't work, and it just generates a lot of animosity toward the United States around the world. So we all should support democracy.
Is that why perhaps is he hesitating? Will he still go ahead is the question that we are trying to pursue here. Dr. Wael Awad, Iran has already warned countries hosting US bases in the region that they could be in the line of fire like last time, like Qatar was last time, and Qatar is already seeking de-escalation and dialogue. Does that weaken the US position in your view? Are Arab states and those who are hosting US bases, are they not on the same page as the United States?
Absolutely not. I think Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Oman have been trying diplomatically to ease the tension and urging the United States not to go for any military adventure in Iran, because this time the Iranian is very adamant that if any attack by the American, their military bases in the GCC will be a legitimate target for the Iranian government. So therefore, it will be shifting from Iran, United States, it will be attacking the regional security arrangement in the region, and that will be wider regional war. So Israel and the United States definitely are on the verge of attacking Iran either tonight or tomorrow. But will the United States sending economical help or lifting the sanction on Iran to ease the pressure on the Iranian, or they are going to send guns and bombs that they have done in Gaza like the Israelis? So I don't think any Iranian having sensible thinking that he wanted to see the American bombing their own citizen brother and sister in the country. And the United States does not bring democracy. They have already toppled democracy in Iran. They brought the Shah of Iran. Then the Islamic revolution has come. They become an anti-American, anti-Israelis, with the American felt that this is an anti-Iranian regime, and they wanted to replace the regime. So now, vocally, Gaurav, the American publicly are open with the Israelis, saying that it's a regime change. They wanted to change the regime. It's nothing to do with the Iranian people. The Iranian people have the full right to demonstrate. It is the wider demonstration in the history of Iranian revolution ever since 2009, 2019, 2022. But they have already, because of the economic situation, can this economic uprising or revolt change into a political revolt? I doubt it about it.
You don't think that will happen? And Ambassador Trigunayat, now that Russia has waded into this controversy, Russia has warned the US of consequences of if they were to bomb Iran like last time. How do you read the Russian statement? Is this just a regular statement that's been made, or will Russia back Iran to the hilt, and how?
You see, in the region, after Russians lost Syria, Iran is the only country with which they have very close relationship. And they had recently signed a mutual defense security agreement. In recent times also, they have been supplying various helicopters, attack helicopters, missiles, and even S-400 has been activated. So as far as the security of Iran is concerned, to the extent that the Russians can help, they will help. And it's not only Russia, it is Russia and China both together,
Yes.
because this is the kind of a grouping that has evolved over time now. And frankly, I mean, how do you justify that if in a country there are legitimate protests on account of the bad economic condition, and the third country says that you can't handle your protests, but let them burn the place, but you cannot control them. I mean, what kind of a law it is? Just because you are the most powerful country doesn't mean that you are going to dictate to everyone in the world like this, that you pick up
No, but
people at
what can
midnight.
Russia do? What can Russia and China do in case the US were to bomb Iran like they did last time with Israel? What are their options?
You see, it is forget about Russia. I mean, I must say that the most important thing, Iranians are not going anywhere. They are flush with missiles and all these missiles will start going around all over. And so your Middle East will be in flames if that happens. And that has been the biggest problem for everyone, including India, that the energy security will be in danger. Your people, 9.5 million people, will be in danger once it starts happening, and nobody can control that. And Iranians,
So why
as a
didn't it
last
happen
resort,
last
would
year?
do
Why
that.
would it happen this year?
Because last year what happened was a managed affair. Because when they, just to avert the Israeli intervention, the Americans, just to please them, brought in their aircrafts and just hit some, and allowed the Qataris, the Iranians, to hit their base in Qatar after vacating it. It was a managed affair, like the previously an exchange between the Iran and Israel also, of volleys and this. So it happened, but this time it's different. But this time there is an internal dissent which has been created and being perpetrated by that. Of course,
So let me
the
bring in
regime is
Exita
responsible.
Shafazan once again, because the UN has warned Iran against executing demonstrators and protesters. US had earlier said it will intervene if a single demonstrator was harmed or words to that effect. Now more than 2,000 have been killed. Why do you think the US is not intervening? Are you of the opinion that Iran, as the ambassador was saying, has a large number of missiles and those missiles will start flying all over West Asia this time?
That's part of it. I think as we saw in the past many years, if US wants to help, they have to remove the sanction. And they are tightening the sanction. As a matter of fact, the aim of the sanction to bring unrest because of the economic situation in Iran. So the people come to the street, which happened. But after a few days after a peaceful uprising, demonstration in Iran, then we know, as Mr. Pompeo said, as a Jerusalem Post said, as Haaretz said, that Mossad agent inside Iran. And this is the continuation of the June war, which happened between Iran, US, and Israel. So since then, actually, if you notice, Netanyahu keeps saying, we want missiles. We want Iran not have any missiles. And their agenda is to separating Iran in 5 pieces. 5 small countries. And that's the agenda. They are dismantling all these democracy. They brought it with the bomb. You cannot bring democracy with bombing country. What happened to Iraq? What happened to Afghanistan? What happened to Libya?
But that's a big
Syria?
point you're making. You say that the wider US strategy is to split Iran into 5 different countries. Roxana Chegeni, Donald Trump is assuring the protesters, as the patriots of Iran, as he puts it, that help is on its way. But so far, it seems only sanctions have been imposed. Will sanctions deter the regime in your view? Because apparently there will be some execution of protesters starting later, either tonight or tomorrow.
Any action, it helps people. Every action is a positive action. President Trump, we know him. He is he plays poker. He deal with people. He make it difficult, and he wants to get the best deal. And I don't think it's easy for him to make a military action or send people so easy, because so many countries are involved. For example, Saudi Arabia, European countries, Emirates, India, China, Russia.
Okay.
There are so many countries that they are not happy if sudden change happens. But it's gonna happen.
Okay, there's breaking news that's coming in. Iran has now warned countries in the Gulf region, those who are hosting US bases, that they will be a legitimate target if Iran is attacked. Now, amidst this escalating tension, Iran has warned its neighbors it will target US bases if American forces target Iran. Now, reports from Tehran say Iran has warned its neighbors. It's warned Qatar. It's cautioned other neighbors, including some reports seem to indicate they've cautioned Saudi Arabia, they've cautioned Kuwait and also Iraq. They've said neighbors hosting US troops, American bases will be legitimate targets. The reports cite US officials who claim some personnel at these bases, and especially those at the Al Udeid base in Qatar, they've been advised to leave the US airbase Al Udeid in Qatar, as Iran had targeted last time. Many had argued that time that was a planned attack. This time what we are being told is there'll be a massive retaliation. At least that is what Iran claims. Qatar has issued a statement. Now they've issued a formal statement after a meeting with Iran, and they say measures must be undertaken to respond to the current regional tension. They want a wider discussion. Qatar has reaffirmed they will continue to implement measures to safeguard the safety and security of their citizens, including actions related to protection of critical military facilities, but they've also sought dialogue. And I want to bring in Professor Painter on this. Sir, do you think there'll be a massive escalation? Should there be strikes? Is dialogue still a way forward from this point? And is it more difficult? Why is Iran more difficult than Venezuela in your view? A dictatorship versus a theocracy, sir?
Well, the United States getting itself involved militarily in Iran, I think almost certainly will lead to disaster. It will lead to a lot of the Iranian people to support the government in Iran, which is a dictatorship, a horrible dictatorship. But for the United States to intervene militarily in violation of international law, for the President of the United States to do that without the consent of the United States Congress, also in violation of the United States law, is going to create a situation where the mullahs are running Iran, the dictators, are then going to become the heroes in standing up against American aggression. This is not the way we ought to pursue this. This is the same mistake, as I said, we made over and over again throughout the world, going back to Kermit Roosevelt's 1953 orchestrated coup to install the Shah of Iran, which led to a great deal of bitterness against the United States. We really can't play into this great Satan rhetoric of the Iranian government by going and bombing Iran and
That's
killing innocent.
That's an interesting point you make, Professor. In case the US were to bomb Iran, the Ayatollah would become even stronger because they're standing up to the Americans. Dr. Vailavad, is that also your reading? Iran is a theocracy. Is the regime more rooted in power in the entire system compared to, for example, Maduro in Venezuela? Will Iran be far more difficult for America than abducting just a Maduro from Venezuela?
Gaurav, the Americans are not doing the American interests in the region. It is in the behalf of the Israeli government, which wanted to disintegrate the whole region into small countries that can have the hegemony and create a greater Israel. Remember this, when he went to Netanyahu, went to President Trump, he told him, when we start bombing Iran, we will immediately get the regime changed. And they did it for 12 days, and they realized they were begging for the ceasefire. Now this is happening as a continuation of the American and Israeli attack on the Iranian in a different way. And any kind of adventure taken by the American or the Israelis, definitely they will have this time a very ferocious kind of a reply from the Iranian. Iranian does not like any foreign intervention. I am for an Iranian resolution. I am for the Iranian to solve their problem, not a foreign intervention. United States had a covert operation all over the world, and Richard mentioned very strongly about the Mossadegh when he was stopped by MI6
Yes.
and the CIA and the Mossad, and they brought the Shah of Iran. The Shah of Iran have no background and no support inside Iran, by the way, no popularity. So any military action as a pretext to destroy Iran is a clear indication that the United States is not after the Iranian regime, is more after the Iranian technology, the ballistic missile technology, and their nuclear and their scientists.
Okay. Ambassador Trigunayat, when you see the reaction of the Arab world, when you see Russia's reaction, what is your reading? What's the US planning to do? Will they go ahead and bomb now that President Trump has said they're locked and loaded? Or do they realize if they go in, there is no quick in, quick out? This could be like another Russia-Ukraine war that's on for 4 years, and there are lives that are going to be lost across the region.
See, Gaurav, if I was advising President Trump, I'll tell him to let it be, because the Iranian people are also quite fed up. They are also suffering a great deal. And if the Iranian regime makes a mistake of hanging these protesters, they will be writing their death wish. This will not stop there. We have seen what happened in the Arab Spring. It will happen again here. But the moment there is a foreign interference, you see the countries, Iranians are civilizational people. For them, their country, their identity is first, and the differences later. There might be certain people living outside Iran who might be feeling comforted by this, but you never know. I mean, tomorrow when it comes to a country, we have seen they all come together. So I think that will be the biggest mistake he will make now, for whatever reason, whether it is for on behalf of Israel. Israel definitely will be unhappy if President Trump doesn't take any action.
Okay, Azita Shafazan, in your appreciation, why have past movements not succeeded against the regime? Is this one any different, or is the regime very well entrenched because it's a theocratic state?
Well, I believe, because I'm traveling to Iran more often actually right now, and it's not as they are the propaganda outside. Is actually some of the reporter was in Iran 6 months ago, and they realized there is very high technology there. There is people, although we are under the sanction, but there is so many goods available in Iran. They can get it easy. As a matter of fact, because of the economical sanction is putting very hardship for the people. So I am against any military action, because this is satisfy Mr. Netanyahu and Israel. This is following agenda of Israel in the region, in the West Asia. And I hope.
But will Arab states stand up for Iran, or will the Persian-Arab rivalry, prevent any of the Arab states from supporting Iran now?
It doesn't matter they are supporting or not. We know they are under influence of United States and Israel. But at the same time, we have to understand Iran is very strong in military. Iran is not Syria or Libya. Iran is not Iraq or Afghanistan. I don't want a World War III starting. That's why I'm against any military action. Remove the sanction.
So
if you want to help the Iranian
from
people.
Roxana Chegini in the last 1 minute I have on this part of the show. Roxana, Qatar is seeking de-escalation. Arab countries didn't support Iran last time either. They don't appear to be backing the US-backed military action, it seems, this time. Or are there more layers to this?
I think nobody can guess what happens if something happens. No, we cannot guess. There is no guarantee. There is no security. They ask Prince Reza Pahlavi, what is your plan? What happens? I think now the situation is out of control for the government, and also the world doesn't know how to act now. I think President Trump should take an action, regardless of that what we know, and then everything is going to be on the falling on the place. Whatever happens, they are not going. Iran is not going to get in war with everybody or just cancel all the contracts.
We'll be tracking developments on that story very closely. To all my guests, many thanks for joining me. Joining me now for more on this big story is Harmeet Shah Singh from London. Anisha Mathur is my colleague who covers legal issues. She joins me in our studio. Harmeet, 200 plus young Sikhs took to the streets of London. Can you give us details? Why did they have to take to the streets?
This happened, Gaurav, because this was the last straw on the back of the Sikhs. This is not an isolated incident at all. It's part of a project called turning Kors into Khans, and this has been happening for the past 2.5 decades or so. And there are allegations of police inaction, because it's also seen as in the realm of the law, it's seen as something which may provoke a racist accusation, but that's not the case. So far as the Sikh girls are concerned, there are grooming gangs, and the members of these gangs are from Islamic background, and that's a harsh reality. And most of them come from Pakistan. That's again another harsh reality, or Afghanistan. So
stay with me for a moment. Stay with me for a moment. This is very disturbing. Picking up girls as young as 11, 12 and 13 and giving them drugs and then raping them, repeatedly raping and peddling them subsequently. Anisha, you've been looking at reports in the UK. How grave is the situation of these grooming gangs? What more can you tell us?
Well, Gaurav, there are official reports, official numbers that have been looking at these kind of child sexual exploitation, group sexual assault of children. And the last and the most important one right now for us is the report by Baroness Casey, which was tabled in the UK Parliament. This is an official report which looked at the hundreds of cases across several years where convictions have actually happened. And what they've said is that there is a disproportionate number of men of Asian ethnic backgrounds, disproportionate number of men also belonging to Pakistani backgrounds. What is also interesting, Gaurav, is this debate that happened in the UK Parliament in December, just a few days ago, in fact, where the Home Secretary announced that there will be a national inquiry into the ethnic background of the perpetrators of this child sexual abuse crimes, because the UK has recognized over decades that there have been such grooming gangs that have been operating. There have been multiple reports since 2009 in the UK, Gaurav, where such cases have happened, where young girls are pulled into what is shown initially as a romantic relationship. Then they are given drugs, they're often beaten, they are horrifically exploited. Several of these cases also showing that they've been sent off to different people to be exploited, to be raped again and again. And it is a horrifying situation that has happened over decades in the UK. And finally, since last year, we see that this is also coming for a reckoning, as the UK government is talking about changing laws. They're talking about looking into ethnic backgrounds. And as Harmeet was saying, for a very long time, this has become a political hot potato, because people were not willing to look into the ethnicities of the perpetrators for fear of racial profiling. And this is something we've been looking at, Gaurav. The reports that I'm looking at for the last several years, whether it is in the Parliament or in the news, the politics over racial profiling, the politics over fears that there are a particular religion or a particular ethnic background may be profiled, and that we've seen reports coming in where victims have come out in the open to say that their case was being ignored or they were being called prostitutes because the authorities did not want to make it look like they are ethnically profiling the perpetrators. This is something that is very serious, Gaurav.
How? It just defies logic. Harmeet, you were mentioning this K to K project, Kor to Khan. This almost sounds like, what is described often in India and legally as love jihad. What is this Kor to Khan project?
Well, this Kor to Khan project, as it is called here, there is a very well-heeled kind of a modus here. in which, the young girls are approached by people of Islamic background. In this case, there is the man allegedly comes from Afghanistan, but in most cases there are Pakistani people because they speak Punjabi. They would socialize with Sikh girls wearing a kada. So that's something which will, strike a chord. For example, if someone's original name is Salim, he'll say that his name is Satinder. So that will strike the conversation, and that goes on and on. And then the next part of this modus is that these girls are groomed for various activities. One of them being to serve as these are, of course, there are written complaints about it, that to serve as second or third wife of these men back in Pakistan, or to act as the, to go there for sex holidays in Dubai.
No, but explain this to me.
And also,
the Sikh community in Hounslow, and I'm so glad they came together as a community to protect one daughter. And perhaps, if the system fails them, people have to come together to protect your family, to protect your loved ones. That's very clear. But tell me about Sikhs in India. A large Sikh community lives in India. Have they raised this issue? Is this issue being raised? Is this a one-off, or is this like a much, much wider problem?
Definitely, it's not a one-off issue. As I mentioned earlier, this issue dates back to a couple of decades. The unfortunate part in our country, in India, is that, there are certain vocal voices. There's people who are very vocal, who now, dominate social media. They somehow act as proponents of this imagined bonhomie between the two Punjabs, the Indian Punjab and the Pakistani Punjab, and they actually brush aside anything which involves the perpetrators from Pakistani Punjab or from Islamic background. But that's very unfortunate. This shows that the kind of double register that does exist in our society.
Because the Pakistanis are very clear. And Anisha, you've been looking at these reports. Have these reports do they seem to indicate majority of the perpetrators? And I'm not talking about the accused. The convicts are all Pakistanis, either second generation or first generation Pakistanis?
Well, Gaurav, let me take you through some of these reports. The Rotherham incident, where almost 1,200 victims there is allegation that there were about 1,200 victims. What the report says is majority of the perpetrators are from Pakistani background. We see the 2015 Birmingham report, 75 grooming suspects were analyzed, 62% of those are Pakistani, 12% are white, 500 victims in this Birmingham report. We've seen these reports coming in also, between 1989 to 1995, and what we're seeing is also, 2010, 11 men convicted in Derbyshire, 10 were Pakistani out of these 11 convicted, 26 victims. 2011, we see a detailed expose by the Times in UK by Andrew Norfolk, highlighting the number of prosecutions with Pakistani ethnicity, the perpetrators of
Anisha,
Pakistani
keep tracking
ethnicity.
that story. I will come back to you for more. This is really, really disturbing, but so happy to see the community come together and protect one of their own. Perhaps a lot more is needed, and a lot more of the state intervening and not trying to be so proper. It's more important to protect these girls, to protect and ensure law is upheld instead of what Pakistanis may think or may appear to do. But we'll be tracking that story closely. So a Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorist, Abu Musa Kashmiri, has openly issued a genocidal threat against Hindus in India. He was speaking in Pak-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and this Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorist declared, and I quote, "Kashmir भीख मांगने से नहीं मिलेगा, हिंदुओं की गर्दन काटने से मिलेगा." So this concept of Ghazwa-e-Hind that these chaps believe in, and they've believed in it for God alone knows how long, they continue to peddle that irrespective of some sense trying to be drilled into them. Now this comes after the major setback that these terrorist groups suffered following Operation Sindoor, under pressure, terrorists are now dropping all pretense and they're revealing the true intent of Ghazwa-e-Hind. Musa claimed he told the Pakistani leadership that jihad for Kashmir, take Kashmir by force. This rhetoric actually mirrors the thinking, whether it's this illiterate terrorist or Pakistan's army chief Asim Munir, exactly the same hate against Hindus, something that we really need to understand, appreciate, and then act against. Meow meow karne se nahi milegi. I mean, just look at how these chaps talk. I want to bring in Arvind Ojha, my colleague, for more on the story. Arvind, ये आतंकवादी पाकिस्तान के आर्मी चीफ की भाषा बिल्कुल वैसी भाषा बोल रहे हैं जिस तरह पहलगाम आतंकी हमले से पहले पाकिस्तान के आर्मी चीफ ने भाषा बोली थी। तो चाहे आतंकवादी हो या पाकिस्तान की वर्दी, एक भाषा, और क्या एक और बड़ा आतंकी हमला हो सकता है, इस तरह का अंदेशा है?
देखिए, लश्कर का ये आतंकी है जिसका नाम है अबू मूसा कश्मीरी। इसने ये जहरीला बयान दिया है पाक अधिकृत कश्मीर में। जब ये जिहादियों के बीच खड़ा था तब उनको उकसाने और भड़काने के लिए उसने ये बयान दिया कि भीख मांगने से आज़ादी नहीं मिलेगी, कश्मीर को आज़ाद कराना होगा तो हिंदुओं की गर्दनें उड़ानी होगी। ये भड़काऊ बयान दिया। दरअसल ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के दौरान जिस तरह से पाकिस्तान में पलने वाले आतंकियों को करारा झटका लगा है, उसके बाद से ये लाजमी है कि इस तरह के वो बयान देकर जो आतंकी संगठन में जो जिहादी हैं, जो आतंकी।
आप इस बड़ी खबर पर नजर बनाए रखिए। ताजा जानकारी के लिए फिर मैं आपके पास लौटूंगा। बट आई वांट टू एंड ऑन अ हैप्पियर नोट, एंड आई वांट टू एंड दिस इंडिया फर्स्ट ब्रॉडकास्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट इंडियाज एंशिएंट मैरिटाइम लेगेसी that sailed into life and history once again. So the Indian Navy sailing vessel, Indian naval sailing vessel INSV Kaundinya, it's finally arrived at Port Sultan Qaboos in Muscat after completing its maiden voyage from Porbandar, Gujarat to Muscat. Now built using rare 5th century stitched ship technique, the vessel actually retraces historic sea routes that once connected India and Oman, India and West Asia. A major trade route, major. Remember, Gujarat was a very powerful trading port, as Somnath history has indicated. Now, the vessel was welcomed by the Indian diaspora. The voyage, it highlights India's civilizational seafaring strength, indigenous shipbuilding expertise, and maritime diplomacy. For the Indian Navy, this is not just a voyage. It's a very powerful statement of India's cultural depth, technological confidence, and enduring leadership in the Indian Ocean region. I want to leave you with these images and the message from INSV Kaundinya's crew and a member of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Economic Advisory Council, Sanjeev Sanyal, who called this voyage a dream.
Neeraj bhai, aaja please. She's going for a bite. She's going for a bite. Just sit down. Sit down.
This space, please.
So, what message you would like to say?
So let me say that a lot of people have made this happen. There's obviously the encouragement of the Honourable Prime Minister, without which this wouldn't even have started. Support from the Ministry of Culture that financed this project to put it together. The Indian Navy, which obviously both supervised the building of it and then crewed it for this voyage. There were others, the Ministry of External Affairs, Ministry of Shipping. So there are a lot of people who made it come together. And of course we had, we brought on board traditional shipwright Babu Sankaran and his team. And of course the amazing crew that sailed it, led by Commander Vikas Sharon and the expedition chief Hemant, who incidentally was also involved in the designing of the ship as well.